When you talk about a semi-final, we speak about matchups, players going against each other, head-to-head records, and a lot of rivalry-related things. But when it comes to the first semi-final between India and Bangladesh in the Women's Asia Cup 2024, the key word to define this clash would be soul-searching. Both these teams really need to dig deep and look at their flaws and figure out a way to really get out of the funk that they've been in certain departments ahead of a big T20 World Cup coming up in October. India and Bangladesh find themselves in a clash that's extremely lopsided, particularly in the last couple of years. Just this year, India and Bangladesh faced each other in a 5-match T20I series in Bangladesh, and the host got thrashed thoroughly by India. There was one common theme to those defeats. Bangladesh's batting never really turned up, barring Nigar Sultana Jyoti. The captain had to often step up and really be the anchor that carried the team's batting innings together, which wasn't always feasible when it came to a side with a bowling as boisterous and brimming with energy as India's. We saw India experiment with a number of bowlers as well. We saw Asha Shobana getting a look in. Eventually, we've seen players like Arundhati. Radha has made a comeback into the Indian lineup. We've seen Shriyanka Patil come in and out of India's playing 11. So India's bowling has been extremely robust, especially after that WPL last year. With the batting as well, we're seeing a lot of India players finally figure out their rhythm and come into a good patch of form. And that involves bulk of the top 5 for India. Smriti Mandana is, I think, in the form of her life. Shafali Verma is on the high after that 200 in Chennai and has looked very, very comfortable out in the middle, going with her explosive shots and her quintessential way of playing. No change there. We've seen Jemima Rodrigues play very, very important roles in that number 5 role in the T20I setup. Harman has been in good form. She's had a 50 to her name. Richa has been explosive as usual. But the one issue here is that number 3 slot, where we find Dayal and Hemlata taking that spot at the moment in the Indian setup. Now, we realize that this experiment hasn't exactly worked out. We've always seen Hemlata as somebody who could come in maybe after the power play because of how completely comfortable the two openers have looked. So she'll have to deal with a lot of spin, but she's been slow to score off the spinners. Sometimes she tries to go out there and really get explosive right from the word go, doesn't wait to really settle in or to figure out the line and length that the bowlers are trying to get at her, and then she ends up getting dismissed quickly. That 47 that she had against Nepal was a good score and one of those rare above 30 scores that she's managed in the recent past, but that's not what she's in this lineup for. India is looking for a higher level of comfort in scoring runs from Hemlata, and if you ask me, I think they might still persist with her in the semi-final and the final as well. Semi-final particularly because the opponent is someone like Bangladesh, and we know Hemlata was given an opportunity in Bangladesh, and even though she didn't score too big, she looked really good in that series. This number 3 conversation becomes that much more important because this is India's last international assignment before the World Cup. After this, we're going to see individual players break off and go to the 100, go to CPL, and then come back and figure themselves out before that world event. One puzzling aspect from the group games of the Women's Asia Cup for me, as far as India is concerned, is the use of Tanuja Kanwar. We have no clarity about whether Tanuja Kanwar is going to be a part of India's T20 World Cup plans. Because if that is the case, then Asha Shobana has sort of been warming the bench for nothing after being in that squad, in the South Africa squad, in the Bangladesh squad. The assumption was that they've taken her, seeing how effective she is in spin-friendly conditions, to sort of maximize what she can bring with her leg spin in Bangladesh. But how things have gone as far as selections are concerned have not really gone in the same direction. So that's something that we're all waiting for some clarity from the Indian management from. We've seen Sajana Sajeevan being given an opportunity. With her off-spin, when she has been introduced in the power play, she can tend to be quite handy, especially chipping in with a wicket or two. But against Nepal, we saw she has just one template of batting so far, which is going explosive. That's not how she usually plays. If you see her in the domestic setup, she knows how to settle in, build her innings, and really play according to situation. I don't know if it was just a funk or if it's coming down to not having a defined role that's perhaps caused Sajana to play the kind of innings that she played against Nepal. But will India decide to give her a go, persist with her a little bit? That's another thing that we'll have to wait and see at the toss for India and Bangladesh. This musical chairs of selection will continue to go on, but the actual big problem that India has in front of it is its fielding. Bangladesh is not a side that's going to test India too much on the field, but the fact that there have been catches dropped, the ground fielding has been a little poor. There have been a lot of runs that have been allowed to go to the boundary. things like this are really going to cost India against a team that's a little more athletic, a little more robust, and a little more better at its reflexes on the field, which is the kind of competitive pool India will see in the World Cup. The likes of South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, England, these are not teams that are going to let you go for allowing 10 to 20 runs to leak in the field. Shafali Verma was asked about it in the pre-match press conference, and she said the team is working on it. She hopes that the semi-final and the final see India ticking all three boxes. We for one hope that India can manage that as well. That will be a huge boost for the side going into that T20 World Cup. Coming to Bangladesh, Bangladesh has had a very interesting Asia Cup. I felt like the Sri Lanka game was a little bit of a thrashing, which they had to get in the beginning, but they've managed to resurrect their campaign with wins against Malaysia and Thailand. These are relatively weaker teams, no doubt, but Bangladesh has sort of used these opportunities to allow its players some rhythm. We've seen players like Murshida Khatun, who has very, very good scores in the last two games, benefit from that kind of batting practice out in the middle. We've seen Nigar Sultana Jyoti battling a niggle here and there. Despite that, she's been absolutely clutch for Bangladesh, so much so that she's also been able to sit back. She's kept her gloves aside for a bit and she's given others an opportunity. Dilara was given an opportunity to wicket keep. There's been that kind of comfort with Bangladesh. It helps, it does help to have opponents that do not have that much of experience, but kudos to Bangladesh for using it the right way. They have experimented with their lineups, their bowling order. They've brought back Jahanara Alam for the last game. She's a veteran when it comes to this Bangladesh lineup. There are many seasons of cricket that she's seen and she brings that experience into this lineup. For Bangladesh, the bowling, like I've said multiple times in the videos that we keep doing over this tournament, the bowling has never been a problem for this side. They have the know-how as to how to come up and really fox an opponent. They know how to plan for an opponent, and they have the kind of diversity in their bowling arsenal that can step up to players with different weaknesses. The issue here will be its batting. The summer gave us a perfect example of just how outclassed Bangladesh's batting was in front of India. If anything, right now Bangladesh faces a much more informed Indian batting lineup. So the scores have gone up from, say, a 160, 170, 180. India has managed to get to 200 in this tournament. So if that kind of rhythm comes back and India has a reference point from the summer as to how to really keep that pressure button on Bangladesh, it's going to be a very, very difficult task for Nigar Sultana Jyoti and co to really get past India in this semi-final. Naturally, in this game, India begins as favourites, but everyone here who loves a good game of cricket will always take an upset, especially a well-earned one, with open arms. So we're really excited to see what happens in this semi-final. You can keep up with all of the action from this game, the second semi-final between Sri Lanka and Pakistan, and whoever makes that final on Sportstar. We will be running a live blog, so you can keep up with all of the information there. I'll meet you guys in the next video.